Hello and welcome. Having just the right word for a situation, it isn't just about sounding smart. It's really about thinking more clearly. The right word is kind of like a key, It unlocks a much more precise way of seeing the world. So today, we're going to dive into a whole matrix of powerful words to help sharpen our thinking.
So let's just jump right in with a feeling I'm pretty sure we've all had. You're trying to describe this really intense dislike for something, and the word hate, it just doesn't cut it. It feels kind of flat, doesn't it? It doesn't capture that total revulsion. So what's the word for that? Let's find out.
To answer that question, we've got to look at the extreme ends of our emotional spectrum. We are talking about words that go way beyond just good or bad. We're talking pure disgust on one end and the absolute highest praise on the other.
Okay, this slide just lays out that spectrum perfectly. On one side, for that really extreme dislike, you've got words that just drip with disgust. Abominate, detest, and loathe. Then, on the other side, for that high praise, we have words of pure admiration, laudin, encomium, and kudos. The difference here isn't just about being positive or negative, it's about the sheer intensity.
So let's zoom in on the answer to our first question, abominate. This is not just disliking something. This is looking at it with actual horror. Psychologically, it's about drawing a really firm moral line in the sand. And think about related words like abhorrent and atrocious. They all come from that same place of intense, almost physical negativity.
This quote here really illustrates the idea, even with what looks like a few typos. If we read it as it was likely intended, it's saying, "Do not abhor those who abhor you, their act against you was abhorrent." It's this powerful piece of advice, right? It's not just about identifying a feeling, but it's a warning to not let that intense negativity totally consume you. Now, intense emotions can be paralyzing, for sure. But what about that feeling of being paralyzed because you have no direction? We're going to pivot now from the extremes of emotion to that feeling of being stuck right in the middle. We're talking about the language of hesitation and uncertainty.
And the key word here is vacillation. It's that super frustrating mental state where you're just swinging back and forth between choices, completely unable to land on one. It's the paralysis of indecision, and it often shows up with a few physical signs.
First, you might falter. And then maybe you flinch. And finally, you might wince. Falter, flinch, wince. These are like the physical tells of vacillation, right? They're the outward signs of that battle going on inside. Hesitation isn't always something internal. Sometimes things on the outside stop you dead in your tracks. You can foil a plan, which means you stop it from succeeding. You can thwart someone's ambition, successfully blocking it. You can impede progress, creating an obstacle or an impediment. And in the most extreme case, someone might even try to subjugate you, to bring you completely under their control.
And this is exactly why this stuff matters. In a really high-stakes situation, like preparing for a big exam, vacillation is your absolute enemy. Just like this quote says, if you demur, which basically means you hesitate or raise doubts, your progress is going to be hampered. It's going to be held back. Being decisive is the only way to get past an impediment.
Okay, so from internal struggles to external battles, we now land in the social arena, reputation. In this space, words aren't just descriptions. They are literally weapons or tools that you can use to either build someone up or tear them all the way down.
The really crucial thing to get from this slide is the nuance. On the praise side, an encomium is super formal, while kudos is more of a casual, "Hey, good job." But on the other side, slander is specifically a false statement that's spoken out loud. Obloquy is just really harsh public criticism, and detraction, that's the act of belittling someone's accomplishments.
This quote just nails that social dynamic. It's saying you should laud someone, and let's assume loud is a typo for laud, who is esteemable, someone worthy of respect. But in reality, what often happens is jealousy, and that leads people to abase them or degrade them instead. All right, next up, we're shifting gears from social dynamics to the vocabulary of creation itself. Every project, every idea, every single movement has a kind of life cycle, and there are specific words that mark its journey, from just a tiny spark all the way to a full-blown reality. So let's trace this journey. It all starts with the inception. That's the birth of the idea. In its early days, it's rudimentary, just the most basic elements. Then, you initiate the project. You officially kick it off.
And as we all know, you will almost certainly face an impediment, some kind of obstacle you've got to overcome.
And all around this process, you have key roles and stages. An idea might have a precursor, a forerunner who sort of paved the way. The idea itself is incipient in its very early phase. And anybody who's new to the whole project is a neophyte, a beginner.
Okay, for our final section, we are stepping into the courtroom, and in here, precision is absolutely everything. The language of justice is this highly structured vocabulary where every single word carries enormous weight, and it marks the formal steps from an accusation all the way to a final verdict.
Just look at this flow. First, you have the accusation, where a suspect is formally indicted or inculpated. Then comes the charge, where they are arraigned in court. And finally, if they're found not guilty, they get an acquittal, which serves to exonerate them, completely clearing them of all blame. Every single word is a distinct and critical step.
And at the very center of this entire system is the oath to tell the truth. To break that oath is to commit perjury. It's not just lying, it's lying under oath, which is a really serious offense that undermines the entire foundation of the justice system.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What connects all of these different words? Well, from the intensity of our own feelings to the formal process of the law, the words we choose do so much more than just describe our world. They give it structure, they give it meaning, and ultimately, they actually shape our reality.
So, as we wrap things up, I'll just leave you with this question. We've covered a ton of ground here, from abominate all the way to exonerate. So now that you know them, which one of these powerful new words are you going to use first? Thanks so much for joining me.